Hey everyone, how are you doing? It's Marla. This video is going to be, I don't even know how to get into this video. How do I get into this video? This is a life update video. And in the background you may hear Sam, my golden doodle, making lots of noise. He's still a puppy, he still has a puppy brain. So I'm hoping he doesn't cause too much interference in this video. But anyway, I've had a couple of people ask me how my son's doing and ask me how I'm doing and said they're praying for me and praying for my son. And I just wanted to kind of come on and kind of give everybody an idea as to anybody that doesn't know who I am and who's kind of stumbled on this video by accident. My son had OCD, anxiety disorder. He developed it initially when he was a child. Originally, his hair is sticking up in my hair. It's driving me crazy. Initially, when he developed OCD, anxiety, we didn't really know what it was. He was a child. He was probably 6 years old. Very, very irritable to the point of being almost slight rage. I guess it's the best way to put it. Just really angry all the time, angry at us all the time, and could never figure out what was going on with him. So I took him to therapy for, probably for several months, and the therapist at that time suggested that he see a psychiatrist because he felt he needed medication. This video is going to be kind of a, I don't want to say, I don't even know how to say this. I guess this is a good video for parents to watch maybe before they consider giving their child psychiatric medication. Maybe that's the best way to put it. I'm trying to keep myself composed in this video, but it's going to be very hard. So I may be taking several breaks to kind of compose myself. Anyway, at the time I was very naive. We were very naive about the whole psychiatric, world of psychiatry, world of psychology. And you think that because a person is a psychologist, they are just as good as the next psychologist. But I have learned over time that there are people that have a degree, but they really are not trained. They don't have the expertise for what you're particularly looking for. They may act like they do, but they don't. This is such a confusing video, and it's so kind of going to be sad. I'm trying to make it not so disjointed. My son had OCD, anxiety disorder. We took him to a psychologist who was trained in cognitive therapy. He was an older psychologist who did not know the new exposure response techniques of therapy. At that time, I didn't realize that there was a difference between cognitive therapy and exposure response therapy. What I should have done is I should have taken my son and put him into an intensive exposure response and therapy treatment program. But there were none in our area, but I could have driven probably an hour away. At the time I was living in Central Florida, but there is a very, very good, hospital-based setting over at I think it's St. Joseph's in St. Petersburg. Can't remember the name of the hospital right now, or the clinic right now, but it was in, I believe, Clearwater or St. Petersburg. I don't know, but it's probably one of the best, at least in Florida. But at that time, I didn't realize that it even existed over there. So anyway, the psychologist at the time sent us to the psychiatrist, who evaluated my son and said he probably has OCD, anxiety disorder, and they put him on a medication. And that is where this whole story begins. Because if it wasn't for the initial beginning treatment with medication, probably would not be in the situation I am in right now with my son. Anyway, he was given SSRIs and some tricyclic antidepressants over probably a 7-year period, but he started to develop some facial, I almost want to say facial muscular cramping in his face that would cause him so much distress. It almost felt like he said he was suffocating, that this cramping sensation around his face and this jaw area was causing him so much anxiety that it actually made his anxiety get so much worse as a result of this pain. And at the time, nothing seemed to be helping him. We tried different levels. Again, because when you go back to your, God, this is so disjointed. I'm so sorry for this. When you originally set foot in a psychiatrist's office and they label you as depressive or somebody that has anxiety or somebody that's bipolar, that is your label. That is who you will be for the rest of your life. When you go into the next psychiatrist's office and they ask you for your history, that's how they will look at you. So every time we would take him back to the psychiatrist and say, hey, he has this facial pain going on. Could it be a result of the medication? What could be causing this? He said, it's just his anxiety. It's just his OCD anxiety. It got to the point where it was so bad, he was put on a benzodiazepine, Ativan. So he was placed on Ativan, which is a benzodiazepine. He was given it with instructions that, for all of us, that it was a very addictive substance and not to go up on the medication, and it was going to be used on a daily basis. It was not even prescribed as need. It was prescribed 1 milligram once a day. So my son started out at 1 milligram once a day. And it's not so much that these people that get on some of these drugs are addicts. It's just that the 1 milligram once a day or the initial dose doesn't work anymore or as well as it did, and you will have to bump it up. And that happens over a very short period of time. So he started out on 1 milligram, ended up on 2 milligrams, and then at the end of probably about 1.5 years was up to 3 milligrams of Ativan. And if you've never taken Ativan before, that's a lot of Ativan. I mean, I have read where some people have gone up to 6 Ativan, even more, but it's a lot of Ativan. And it was so much Ativan that he felt out of it all the time, felt tired all the time. And mind you, my son at the time, when he was originally given Ativan, was 17 years old. If you look at the prescribing information for Ativan, which at the time I did not because I was so desperate to try to get him some help. If you look at it, Ativan is not supposed to be given long-term. However, if you look at prescriptions for benzodiazepines across the country, Xanax, Ativan, Klonopin, Valium, a lot of these drugs are being prescribed off-label, which means the psychiatrists are prescribing these drugs not the way they were intended from the pharmaceutical company. Again, if you look at the package circular for Ativan, it is only supposed to be given for short term, I believe 2 weeks. My son was on it for 1.5 years. When you get on these drugs, they tell you that they're addicting. They have addictive properties. So you think to yourself, my kid's not an addict. He doesn't have addictive properties, therefore should be easy to get off the drug. What they don't tell you is that when you try to get off these drugs, you literally for some people, not for everyone. But when you try to get off these drugs, it's literally like entering the gates of hell. And I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. When you start backing off the drugs, number one, most doctors do not know how to taper, do not want to taper, do not want to be responsible for a taper. So a lot of people that want to get off psychiatric meds like this are on their own. They really are trying to figure it out on their own, which is really kind of sad. My son asked his psychiatrist how to do a taper off the drugs because he did not want to be on them anymore because he felt like he was groggy all the time, could barely keep his eyes open. Oh, and I forgot to insert in here the reason he wanted to get off the drugs was because he went to a TMJ specialist who fit him up with a mouth guard that he wears in his mouth almost all day long that has totally taken away the pain in his mouth from the spasming, which had to do with the clenching that he was doing due to his anxiety. If we only would have had a mouth guard first, we would have never gone on, or he would have never gone on the Ativan. If the psychiatrist would have suggested possibly that the pain in his face was due to possible clenching or something other than his anxiety, we would have pursued that route. But the psychiatrist was so sure that this was all anxiety related, he was just put on more medication. When you get off Ativan, for some people, some of the symptoms can be things that you've never experienced before. So for example, if you had originally had anxiety, you may go into a severe depression. And this is like a depression like you've never seen before. Depression where not that you just can't get out of bed or you're glum or you're moody. This is a suicidal despair depression. You can also develop, or you can also experience what's called derealization and depersonalization. Words I never knew before until this whole experience happened. Derealization and depersonalization is probably the best way described as almost like, and it's tough because unless you go through it, you really can't relate to what the person's going through. But it's almost as if you are looking at everything through a glass. You are separated from everything. You are dissociated from the world around you. You look around and you just don't even feel like you're here. You feel like your soul has left. You are soulless. You are not the person you were. You don't remember really kind of a lot of the things that you were. You just don't have feelings even of happiness or sadness, joy. You've lost a lot of your emotion. You just are disconnected from everything. And it is strange. It's just a strange thing. Also, some people experience extreme fatigue. They can sleep for 10 hours a day and wake up and still be totally exhausted. Exhaustion like you've never felt before. And some people also experience insomnia. It just kind of depends on the person, whether or not they even have withdrawal. But there is a percentage of people large enough that there is now movement to try to get informed consent, which means when you walk into a doctor's office and they are going to give you a medication, they need to at least be able to tell you that if you decide to get off these drugs, you may be one of the people that experience a very horrible withdrawal, The withdrawal can last weeks, months, sometimes years. But informed consent, because if I would have known that before I put him on the Ativan, he would have never gone on the Ativan. I would have figured something else out for that pain or for whatever he was feeling in his face. But because I kept being told it was his anxiety and this is the only thing for it that we can do to help him right now, that's what we did. So right now my son has backed off all his psychiatric meds and we are just playing a waiting game. When you come off these meds, they've obviously affected your brain receptors. So your brain is probably trying to reset itself, and it takes a while to reset itself. Your cognitive function is shot. He can't be in school right now. He's on medical leave of absence because his brain is just not able to function, to remember things. He can remember things from his past, but if you ask him to read something right now, he'll look at it and maybe an hour later he just doesn't remember what he just read. You feel like your brain dead. You feel like your brain is dead. You feel like your soul is gone. You feel suicidal. You just, it's a horrible experience. So I just wanted to kind of put this update out there because I know a lot of people have been asking about my son and about me. I still plan on doing periodic videos for my fun makeup channel because it's probably 15 minutes of the day where I can kind of take my mind off of what's going on with my son, because the rest of the day when he wakes up in the morning, he's sleeping right now, but the rest of the day is really kind of devoted to him and just trying to help him. You really can't do much as a bystander in this. It's very difficult. It's just a matter of supporting someone that's going through this. I've pretty much cut off all contact with any of my friends right now because it's very, very hard to explain this whole process to people. They just don't quite understand it. And unless you have a child that's gone through it, or unless you've gone through it or had a friend go through it, you don't see the impact that the withdrawal has on their life. And unless you go through it yourself, obviously, you don't realize what hell these people are going through when they go through withdrawal. So I wanted to put up this video to kind of alert people that before they take the script from their doctor, fill it at the pharmacy, and go down that route of treatment, try to exhaust all avenues of therapy first before you decide to go down that route, and be aware that benzodiazepines long-term can cause a severe withdrawal in some people that can last a very long time. And I wanted to thank everyone for praying for my son. I would hope that I would appreciate it if you would still keep praying for him. And that's it. So you probably won't see me updating in my other videos because it's tough to talk about makeup and start crying. So anytime I discuss this subject, it's very difficult for me. So that's it. Bye-bye.